You know, I cannot in good conscience start a video about moving past disappointment without referencing our good friend Hercules.
Disappointed!
There we go. Everything's complete. Hello, my friends. My name's Daniel Midson-Short, and in this video today, I want to talk about the idea of moving past disappointment. You might have noticed there's a lot of videos out there about dealing with disappointment, why you get disappointed. There's a lot of articles as well and helpful psychological sort of studies and things like that. But there's not a lot of information out there about how to actually move past it, how to move on in your life and to get on with things even though you've been disappointed. Now, speaking for myself, I have been going through a lot of disappointments over the last year or so in business, some in relationships, some even to do with not being able to visit my family in Australia. It's a very difficult time that we're all going through, and we all have to deal with disappointments in our lives to some degree or another. However, we don't have to dwell on them so long that we get trapped by them or they start to overtake our lives. And that's what I want to share in this video today, that you can move past disappointments if you have the right mindset. And I want to share 4 different ways that I have overcome disappointment in my life and I've moved past it to actually start to feel better in myself and to get the things that I want in my life. And just before I get into the 4 points, I want to say something. If you want to achieve anything in your life, then you have to prepare to be disappointed at some stage. Nothing that's worth doing is easy. We all know that deep down, but for some reason we have these expectations and these ideals, things that we want in our lives, and we kind of attach to them. In fact, the definition of disappointment is being let down by an expectation that something should have worked out a certain way, or someone should have treated you in a certain way, or something like that. It's basically our feeling about the situation rather than the actual act itself. And that's an important point to remember. We play a big part in the disappointment that we feel in our lives. But just remember that anything worth doing takes time and effort, and you will face disappointment if you're trying to achieve something in your life. It's just a reality. Something I've had to learn and has helped me to get back on the path and to move past disappointment in my life. So let's get into the 4 different ways that I have learned to move past disappointment in my life, and that hopefully will help you as well as you're moving on from disappointment in your life. Point number 1 is to accept the disappointment. Now, by this, I don't mean that you should just give up and wallow in it, feel sorry for yourself, but I mean accept that you felt disappointed. Whatever it was that you were hoping would happen didn't happen, and that's okay. You have to accept it, you have to acknowledge it. Sometimes it's good to talk to someone in your life about it and verbalize the fact that you're disappointed and say, I'm disappointed by this thing not working out the way I hoped. By doing that, you're actually able to then start to move past the disappointment faster. Whereas if you don't accept it, you don't realize that you're feeling disappointed, you might just feel demotivated or sad or frustrated or whatever. But when you acknowledge that you are disappointed because, say, you didn't get a certain job or it didn't work out romantically with a certain partner or something like that, then you're in a position to actually move on from it because you first accepted that you're feeling disappointed. Number 2 is to realize your part in the disappointment. Now, as I mentioned earlier, very often the feeling of disappointment comes from expectations. We feel like we wanted something to work in a certain way and then it didn't work for us, and so we kind of cause the disappointment in ourselves because of our own expectations and our attachment to an ideal that didn't happen. Now, it's very natural to feel disappointment in the moments like that, but it's hard to see that maybe we've caused a lot of the disappointment by us having maybe unrealistic expectations, or depending on someone or a certain circumstance working out a certain way for us to feel happy or fulfilled in our lives. When you start to see your own part in the disappointment, it actually empowers you because it helps you to realize that next time you can see things a little bit differently. Point number 3 is to realign your expectations. Now, this one is something that can take a little bit of time, especially if you've had a certain expectation or an ideal in your mind for a while. But once you go through the disappointment, you can feel like you don't want to give up on what it was that you were attached to. Maybe it is a certain person romantically, for instance, or maybe it's a certain job or, a certain career or something like that. When you realign your expectations, what you do is you bring them closer to reality. Because in a way, a disappointment is actually a reality check. It helps you to see things more as they are rather than you hope they would be. Now, by this, I don't mean that you should become pessimistic and give up on your ideals and your hopes, but you have to really look at the situation and say, okay, was I being unrealistic in any way, thinking or hoping that this would work in this certain way? Maybe it's with a certain person. You had feelings for them, but they didn't have feelings for you. Maybe in a certain career, you thought you were qualified or you were the best person for that job and you didn't get the job. Or maybe it's with a certain business that you're trying to start. Maybe you don't have the skills and experience just yet. That's okay. When you realign your expectations, what it does is it brings you back to reality and it helps you to have a point that you can work from. Then you're able to empower yourself to move forward because you know where you're starting from. And once you have clearer, more realistic expectations, that gives you a lot less stress in your life because you're able to see things clearly and actually not get caught up in the idealization or the fantasy of what you were hoping for before. So realigning expectations is a great way to bring yourself back to reality, to accept what's happened, but to see it in a new light and to realize that it's still possible for you to achieve what you want, but maybe in a different way. And the fourth tip to move past disappointment is to resolve to keep going. Now, in this instance, I don't mean keep pushing the same agenda, say with the same person romantically, or try to chase the same job role that you got turned down for. What I mean is to resolve to keep going, to find a good relationship for yourself, or to move forward in your career if that's what you're trying to do. Whatever it is you're trying to do in your life, moving forward is the best way to move past disappointment. It sounds very obvious, but there is a tendency, and I've done it myself, it's just to dwell in the disappointment, to sit there and think it's not fair, or I wish something worked out. But instead of doing that, if you actually move on, you get back into action and you look for ways to try again, to push forward in a different way, you'll find that you move past the disappointment much faster. Now, one thing you might do is not focus on the same area of your life for a while. So for instance, let's say you got disappointed in a romantic relationship. Maybe you focus more on your health or your social life or new hobbies or something like that. You find ways to move forward in your life. And by doing that, it actually starts to give you that momentum and that sense of power that you've been missing due to that disappointment. Moving forward is probably the biggest tip that I can give you to move past disappointment. It sounds very obvious when you think about it, but when you get into action, you feel empowered. And for that reason, it's so significant and it will give you the choice and the power to do what you want in your life rather than being kept or controlled by the disappointment that you had in the past. So my friends, I hope that these 4 tips help you. One thing I want to say in closing is that good things take time and great things take a lot of time. I have learned this in a lot of areas of my life. If you want a great relationship or a great business or you want to develop a skill in a certain area of your life, it's going to take a lot of time and you're going to face some disappointment along the way. You're going to hit setbacks, you're going to be frustrated, you're probably going to be dejected and want to give up at certain points. But by staying on the path, by continuing to accept the situation that you've dealt with right now, looking at your part in it, realigning your expectations, and then resolving to just move forward, you will find that you move past the disappointment a lot quicker. And that, I think, is the key to anyone really achieving large success in their life. Look at anyone that you admire or who has the things that you want in your life, and you will see that they have overcome a lot of disappointment and they've resolved to move forward in their life and to keep going until they got what they wanted. I hope these ideas help you. They've certainly been useful for me over the years, and especially over the last year as I've dealt with a lot of disappointment in my life and I've moved forward beyond it. My friends, my name is Daniel Midson-Short. Thanks as always for watching. If you like this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing to our channel to become part of our community. It would be great to have you with us. Thanks for watching, and as always, thank you for improving yourself.
Disappoint!